Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner. Tonight, we are going to have a talk with His Majesty of Artemisia, Gabe, waving at us there. Nice to see you.
Woo! I didn't know when I was supposed to hit the cam button, so I thought that was
Don't
a
worry
good
about
time.
it. Just a quick reminder to everybody watching with us on Facebook. We love interaction. The coaches love to answer your questions, and I'm sure His Majesty would also love to answer any questions you have. So definitely pop those questions into the chat.
Okay, cool.
And we'll get to as many as we can, hopefully all of them. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Duke Sean.
Hey, everybody. Right on. Thanks again for joining us on the Coach's Corner tonight. We have a segment that we occasionally do, conversation with some of the folks that are out there. Curiously enough, happen to have His Grace Allen on with us tonight. He was the first of these conversations that we did when we got started with this. So happy to have him on to welcome His Majesty. So tonight we have His Royal Majesty Gabe of Kingdom of Artemisia, good friend of mine and my successor. So it's been super fun watching Gabe become part of our kingdom after having grown up in the Outlands. Gabe, you want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your story?
Hi, I'm Gabe, and like he said, I grew up in the Outlands. My whole family plays this game. Started playing when I was 9, and then kind of grew up, spent most of my childhood till I was like 18. Then I went up to North Dakota for a little bit, over to Montana, and started playing up there, and ended up kind of staying. So it was a good transition, and I've absolutely loved becoming a part of this kingdom.
Well, now you're really a part of this kingdom.
Yeah. It's written down that there's proof now.
So let it be written. So Gabe, let's start with, you started when you were 9, but how about we get a little more into how you got into fighting and who you were squired to, and how your training process looked like as an unbelt.
Okay, cool. So I have an odd training process, and that's called non-existent at that time. So I got squired when I was 13 to His Grace Bela of the Outlands. Me and my brother both got squired on the same day on the field of Estrella. My brother was 16 at the time and was already fighting. Me and my brother, before we could fight, we did a lot of youth combat, but at the time in the Outlands, it wasn't youth combat. It was actually just buffers. So it was foam weapons. And we ended up creating our own household as kids. We made little sashes. Mom taught us how to use the applique thing on our sewing machine. And we gave all the little kids that showed up to an event, they became part of our household, which just meant that we had more people to fight, because we would basically wake up at 8 a.m., eat breakfast, and then go and steal a gaggle of kids and then just run off into the wilderness, and we'd beat each other up all day. And it was absolutely awesome. So because of that, Bela's like, these punks, they're the ones I want. And was he sorely mistaken? So he ended up squiring us pretty young. Started doing backyard practices at that time. I was good at boffers, and I'm terribly stubborn and don't like doing things I'm not naturally gifted at, which is a terrible way to go through life. So I actually didn't fight sword and shield for like the first 2 or 3 years, or pretty much a singles form weapon. I have the luxury of my family goes to almost every war throughout the year. And so I got a ton of fighting in just doing melees. So I primarily fought 9-foot spear and didn't spend a lot of time actually practicing, to Bela's chagrin, even though every week he's like, come on guys, let's go out there. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that sounds like a good idea. And, but I ended up going and joining a torchlight tournament because I was already in armor. And I borrowed my brother's center grip at the time, and that was a lot more fun than the heater I had been using or axe I had been fighting with, like a Madu. And I was like, okay, Bela, fine, I'll learn how to fight. And that was when he actually got us start like teaching us drills and taking us through everything and showing us. I like to say Bela doesn't teach a fighting style, he teaches a fighter. Like, it's one of those, he adapts to his students, and he teaches you how to analyze a fight, not just how to beat a weapons form or how to beat a style. He's like, no, it doesn't matter what's in their hand, what you have in their hand. We got sticks. You got to hit the gaps. Like, that's pretty much what we're doing. And so he just taught us a mindset on how to work through things. I don't know that I believe he meant to do that, but I didn't see that for years. And of course, I'm pretty famous for calling Bela and be like, hey, remember that thing you taught me when I was like 18? Yeah, just figured it out. Got it. Got what you were saying. He's like,
hey, Gabe, I definitely want to dive into the training process and how it evolved over the years. But I want to see if I could get you to introduce your family to us. Sean and I know you, and a lot of us probably know you and your family. But for those that don't, why don't you talk a little bit about your mom and your dad and your brother and your sister and your overall family's involvement in the SCA?
Okay. So my family is a little crazy, and when we get a hobby, we tend to spend a lot of time. I think we average over 25 to 30 events a year and have for 18 years at this point. My mom and dad are Robert and Mage. They're a count and countess from the Outlands. And my little sister is Her Excellency Morgan from the Outlands. And then my big brother is just stepped down as Crown of Aidenveldt. He is Count Zipser. And he's a punk, so don't like that. But no, it's actually we joined the game as a family, and it has made us like. I love my family. That's the most reason I play. We all live in different states now, and we get to see each other 7-8 times a year because we just travel and go to events with each other and camp with each other, and it's a blast.
I envy you that experience. I definitely started. My parents were into their own things, and it's probably good because if my parents had been in the SCA when I was a kid, I probably would have been like, I don't want to do my parents' hobby. So I'm really glad that you and your siblings, stuck around and stuff. But I think it's also kind of interesting because, because you started as a kid, and kids are generally, idiots. Mm-hmm. You kind of had that sort of, I'm just here to have a great time thing, for the longest time. Probably, I think it's still a part of your core, that, I'm here to have a good time. But I think somewhere down the line, you start thinking about, how do I see to it that other people also have a good time?
I think that was honestly, I got knighted, and I got knighted when I was 21. I was honestly still a punk kid, still am. But part of what I wanted to do was show people that you can still play this game in what I consider the correct way and have the reverence for these peerages and these awards and all this fake stuff that doesn't really matter in the real world, but it's the power it has and the hold it has on us and the emotional connection we have to it and respecting other people's emotional connection they have to this game. But I wanted to show people that you can still have a smile on your face and make sure that everyone is laughing with you. Like it's you can have a blast and be a joker and have a good time with still paying homage to those things that we hold highly in the SCA. And it's not just it's my way of going about it. Sarah just crawled underneath me because she was trying to get out of the camera. No, so I got knighted and I was like, okay, I've got to grow up a little bit, but I want, it's my goal to be an example for how this can be possible and how you can have a blast and go to dumb parties and make dumb mistakes and still play the game and not be punished for it, essentially.
I think a lot of that comes down to time and place, right? There's definitely, especially as we were younger, because I grew up in the SCA as well, and being a teenager in the SCA in the 80s, I can tell you we're growing up in a very different SCA these days. And, it took a bit to find time and place, again, like you said, to have that reverence for the situation, when you're in court, it's, that's not necessarily the time to be cutting around. But, for some of the stuff that you and, the Wobbly H crew have done, I mean, you and Nick and, Zach, everywhere you go, you're bringing the good time with you. And then, but every one of those guys, when it comes time to hit the battlefield, I mean, you're young enough that you don't get hangovers. So, you can do this all night. You can do this all night long and then go out and then murder people out on the field there too. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys have all, for as much as, people see the revelry and the cutting the fool and all that, but I think you guys have all done a great job finding that time and place and honoring, like you said, the occasion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's just respecting other people's because really when you're honoring the occasion, you're expecting what they feel about that moment, and it's deciding when it is not appropriate to do certain things, and being able to decide that is definitely a key part. But understanding it shouldn't always be that way. Like, it shouldn't always be fun party time, because if it's super fun party time all the time, then in reality, why are we here? Why don't we just go to a bar? But it also can't be the opposite, where everything is this very solemn, we're here for this reason, we are here to honor this, because then yet again, why are we here if you're not smiling? But it's those emotional connections that we have for this that I think is important, and also at the same time.
I think, when it comes to like doing court and that sort of stuff, you have to have those moments of levity in the court, because like you said, if it's all just, completely business the whole time, then that's not really a lot of fun for people. Mm-hmm. But I found that those moments of levity tend to create themselves. And you don't have to reach for those things, but you recognize those moments of humor and levity when they happen, and you capitalize on those, and you make the best of those in that moment to let people know that, there's business to be done, but we can have a good time doing it.
Yep. Yeah. And hey, my princess hit me with a wooden spoon in the last court I was in. So everyone got a laugh out of that. It's like, she attacked me with like a 3-foot spoon.
I know that we've all been very, we've benefited from the fact that the SCA is an easy audience. It's, the things that get said in court that are funny are probably really not necessarily all that funny all the time. Sometimes there's general, that would be television show style level of humor. And oftentimes it's just, in the moment it works, it's people want to laugh, so they're ready to laugh. And if you can find the right way to sort of go through that, I think it's really glad to hear you guys both talk about humor and levity in court as and when it's appropriate. I know I personally, that was one of the reasons I wanted to win crown and, be on the throne, was because I wanted to really bring levity back and humor back and, make it a little bit more of a party kind of a thing. And it's so funny because, as soon as you actually have the responsibility to do that, you also are like, oh man, there's actually really serious bits here too. And, you've really got to, you've got to find ways to make this important. And then when you actually realize just how important an award of arms is to someone, that it's the first award they're getting. And, I know between Sean and I bet we've given out close to 1,000 award of arms over the course of our reigns.
Oh, I can see that.
I do not wish to trivialize that. Not the last one or the first one. They were all important to someone, so they were important to us, when we gave them. So, and I know you have that because, again, you grew up through this, so you kind of, you knew that these things were important inherently. I kind of had to learn, a little bit, so it's really interesting to see your perspective on that. You guys both talk about being teenagers in the SCA. I feel like I was 19 when I joined, but I was 19 going on 13. And so, it was, I felt like I grew up in the SCA.
Yeah, you definitely you grew up in the SCA, but you got to make more of your own decisions. So that was easy.
I could drive at least.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Gabe and I probably had an advantage there in growing up in the SCA and kind of being able to see pretty closely, with him being squired to Bela while he was, a teenager, and me being squired to Brian while I was a teenager, being able to see from a very close proximity some of the goings ons, and we've said a lot that there's nothing that can prepare you for the actual job. You don't, as close as you've been to a throne, you don't know what it's like until you're actually there. But I think, Alana, where you had started at 19, and, you had that potential you were eligible to enter Crown at that point, and yeah, I think it does kind of have a slightly different perspective when you're able to see it and you're like, oh, I'm going to do all this super fun stuff. And then like you said, you get faced with the reality of it that some of that stuff that you think would be hilarious is not that funny.
Yeah.
And you kind of rein that in a little bit, because
I still had to find out the hard way. I still did it and then found out it wasn't that funny.
There were plenty of things I had to learn from my first couple of reigns. So
Gabe, how old were you when your dad was knighted?
Hold up. I got to think about it. So if I was 9, I was 15 or 16, 15 or 16.
Okay. So again, not much longer after you'd been in, you had a parent who was a peer, and, specifically your father was a member of the Order of the Chivalry. What did the Order of the Chivalry mean to you as a teenager? And then what did it mean to you, like somewhere between when you got knighted and now?
I think for a long time it was a goal and it didn't have the meaning it needed to have. It was just something that this is also a perspective that we have realized in the past few years. So I have a large group of friends that are all second generation peers. And thinking back on it, there was never a time where I did not think I would be a knight in my life. Like there was not once in my life did I think I couldn't achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And as a teenager, it was a goal that I wanted because other people had it. And then I think when I realized really what I could do with it and what I thought of as the good I can do with that white belt being as visible as they are, and especially being a really young knight, and being an example for an aging game that had a large group of younger people that were not necessarily not being recognized, but just felt they were not being recognized. And so I think when I realized what I could do with that and try to be a guiding individual and not just a kid who fights well, I think that was kind of when it clicked a little more for me.
Tell me again, because when I met you, you kind of had this thought in your mind of what the chivalric virtues were, and it was a really short list.
Let's be honest here. I still say that often. So
let's hear it, because I actually agree with most of it. I think I actually agree with 99.9% of it.
So when I was very young, I definitely in a hotel room in, I think, Omaha, because we were at a Callantyr War Maneuvers. There was like 8 of us in this hotel room. We just went to the after revel, and I was being ridiculous. And I said there's only 2 virtues. There's prowess, which is beating the shit out of everybody, and then there's chivalry, which is not being a dick about it. that was what I said. And really I use chivalry as a catch-all for being a good person. And
yeah,
like we talk about pure light qualities, and in my mind I'm like, it's just chivalry. Like that's what it is. Like that's, and granted I understand like that is not what that word means, but to me, like that is what it means to me. That is what I've always seen as a chivalric act. Those people you meet and you're like, have you been a knight since you were born? Because you're the most chivalrous person. They have that feeling to you, and that's how I've always seen it.
SCA chivalry, not medieval chivalry.
Yes, exactly.
That basically was how to be a dick.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, actually, one of my my fighting belt only has like prowess and chivalry as the virtues on it. There's no other virtue on it. And I hope one day I'll earn those other ones, but I
think it's really important to look at those, what's considered the other chivalric virtues. And, we can look at them and we can talk about them and exploring each of them and what they mean, individually to people, both, with some of the historical perspective and then the SCA perspective. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy that exercise. And I still think you could probably wrap them all back up into, don't be a dick. Don't really try to be a good human. Understand what a good human is and try to be one, and.
Well, it kind of goes along with something I've been saying about peerage in general. There's two parts to a peerage, right? There's prowess, and then there's what I refer to as franchise, which I think Gabe sums up as chivalry as well. And to me, prowess is the expertise in the thing that the peerage represents. And then franchise is, to me, everything else about the SCA, like everything. Yes, there is the don't be a dick about it, but it is the appreciation for the courtly graces, the dance and the heraldry and the games and all that other stuff, and appreciation for the arts and sciences. It encompasses, like, there's those two parts, prowess, and then there's everything else about the SCA. And you don't have to be an expert in all of those other things, but I think showing an appreciation for those things, even if you don't do those things, showing an appreciation for the arts and sciences, for instance,
and supporting other people's fun.
Yeah,
you can go help out at Kingdom ANS, and all you actually ever really do is fight. But you can go help someone else have their fun at their event,
right.
And you can wash dishes, and you can help clean up the event on the day that it's time to be done, or you can help set up the event. There's lots of things you can do to help other people have their fun, and you don't have to be an expert in their thing. You can support the society without actually having to be an artisan or even really be necessarily focused on the deeper levels of Pelican level service. Just go pick up stuff. Move stuff, do the grunt labor that needs to do. And then, as far as I'm concerned, if you can fight and do some of that stuff, we're talking about your path to knighthood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Gabe, Brano said had put up a list here of some other virtues in case you're interested
in learning what those are, huh?
Being familiar with something other than chivalry.
Weird.
There's a whole list there if
you'd
like.
Before.
Yeah.
This is all new to me. This is all new. I've just never seen these ones.
And that one doesn't include humility. Cool.
Yeah.
Phew. Good. Set on that one. Yeah. No, I definitely. I was just down at an event, and there's a knight from Salt Lake, Sir Connell, and he loves fighting. Absolutely loves fighting. I think in the past, since we've started events, I've seen him get to fight one time because he always goes out and marshals so that everyone else can have fun. And this last weekend, or I guess a couple weekends ago, my friend Sir Kelwin was like, I'll go marshal, Connell, go fight. And he was like, really? I get to do that today? And you're like, yeah, man, come on. But it's just he sacrifices his fun because he feels that it's his duty as a peer to ensure that everyone else has a safe, fun day. And that's honestly part of it. Granted, we should definitely share the load a little more than we do. We tend to, when people start doing something, we tend to be like, oh, well, that's just what they do. And really, they're just doing it because they feel it needs to be done. Whereas if we all just took turns, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah. It took me forever to realize that a lot of people consider service to be fun, though.
Yes.
I always thought of service as just the stuff that needed doing. You could have fun doing it, like if you and your buddies all went wash the dishes. I mean, it was a party at the dishwashing station, at the end of feast, and it was fun. It was part of the revelry. Yet we also was getting some stuff that needed doing done. But there are other people that legitimately get a kick, a thrill out of things that I consider mind-numbingly horrible, and I'm so grateful. I think the entire society is grateful that there are people like that who want to be a part of our society, because they make so much of it work, and they really enjoy doing it. And it's so sometimes, when you say, well, we need to go take that from them because so that they can enjoy something else. Some of them really wanted to do that. There are some people who really would prefer to marshal, but we always need to be on the lookout for, well, is it because that's what they want to do, or is it because they feel obligated to do it? And, we help them, should help people out in that situation. But it still freaks me out that there are people who want to be an exchequer.
I just signed up for Baronial Exchequer. I like numbers, so.
I'm glad there are people who do.
Yeah, no, I get a step down and then take it over.
Not signing up for.
Yeah, I pretty much will step down, and my friend Kelvin is holding the position basically right now, and then I will step down and become exchequer of our group. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah, I'm with Alan on there. When I first started, the first fighter practice I went to, I saw people carrying armor to their car, and it just made sense to me that they could use some help carrying it, and I get to be around the fighters, and I get to be around the armor, and as I'm helping them pack up their armor, I'm like, oh, what's this piece here? What's this piece here? And and it just made sense to me to pitch in where I could. And yeah, I remember, as a squire, as a young man, lots of nights, washing dishes after the feast. Serving feast was one of my favorite things when I was younger. Just either serving feast or just make sure everybody's got water. You get to go around the whole feast hall meeting everybody, and yeah, at the same time you are performing a service and a function, but being able to kind of get that social aspect and getting to chat with everybody throughout feast. When I was a squire, I rarely sat down and ate an entire feast.
Yeah. I tend to not sit still very long, so I just am always up and moving. Even if there's food, I'm like, cool, got it, and just run off. Like, what are we doing now? But yeah, I think it's one thing we definitely need to encourage, but we also need to leave room for people to be like, I don't got enough energy to help right now. Like, I've just done a million things over here. Can I get a second? And we hold, especially squires, I think a lot of the times, which don't get me wrong, like we should all be putting effort in, but I feel like squires a lot of times get held to a certain standard. Like, why didn't you put up 15 pavilions today? Well, you're slacking. What are you doing? And they're like, sorry, I wanted my sword arm to be able to work tomorrow. Like, this is my vacation too. And like, there needs to be a little room for forgiveness on those ones.
Yep. So speaking of that, I know that we want to talk to you at some point about, lessons you've learned about being a new crown in your first time reign, but I'd like to talk a little bit about being, since you're a lot closer to it than Sean and I are, because we were both knighted a long time ago. What do you remember most about being a new knight, and what would you consider your responsibilities, or what would what was different between being a new knight and an old squire kind of a thing? And then also, talk a little bit about, as you grew into your belt, how you sort of saw your changing role.
I think because I was a squire since I was 13 to 21. So I was actually a squire for a long time, but it was through my childhood. So there was already so much change happening in my life. Most of my squire path was just bouncing around all over the place. Yeah. For trying to adjust from being a squire to a knight, I realistically just tried to watch my mouth a little more. It was one of those, because as earlier I said, I felt my job was to show people that you could have fun. I still just kind of did the same things, but I made sure it was in more of a leadership role. And by that, I mean hey, what are you guys doing? You guys want to come have a good time? We're right over here. And just making sure that everyone got to hop in on the fun. And that was essentially, I don't know. I didn't have a long growth period on trying to figure out how to be a knight. I'm not saying I started out and I was a perfect knight. I'm still not a perfect knight, but it just, I mean, it helps when you have a giant ego too. You just think you're going to be great at it. Like I was like, nah, I got this. I'm fine. I don't need anything. I will have to say, going into my vigil, so I got offered knighthood during a tournament at Battlemore, and then got put on vigil that night and got knighted the next morning. My vigil, I was not looking forward to. I actually was like, what am I going to learn from this? Absolutely nothing. And I really can't say anything definitively that like stuck with me, but it was everything. Like I actually truly loved my vigil and getting to have those conversations. And I think that set me on the right path. And I'm very happy I had one. Whereas literally 10 minutes before I go sit down in my vigil, in my head, I'm like, this is going to be a waste of time. Why am I here? And it actually was I feel a growthful experience for me. And I think what the weight of other people's emotions set into me. It was one of those like, okay, this isn't really just about me anymore. Like, even because you hear it all the time, like everyone sees you with that white belt. It's like the most common thing you hear in a vigil. But it was the impassioned people that came and talked to me and who were proud of me or who didn't want me to fail or things like that. And it was just the emotion in the conversations, I think, is one thing that really helped me start my path off right. I mean, granted, I still make mistakes and do dumb things, but it was a good way to start.
You know, there's something about that too, where, you know, for those of us, because I always similar is like being like the question of being a knight was like that was a foregone conclusion to me from the beginning. It's like I'm going to be a knight. I just knew it. And for that, we kind of have this thing where, you know, I don't need to have it happen now because I know it's going to happen, right? And there's a certain freedom in that. But at the same time, you know, Gabe, you're talking about those people that come to your vigil and, you know, wishing you well and all that. And that's the moment that you realize that in some ways you being recognized is the encouragement that somebody else needs. Because when they see you fighting well and when they see you doing knightly things and you're not getting knighted, even if it doesn't bother you, like there are people that are out there saying, well, if Gabe can't get knighted, then I can't get knighted. You know, if there's this guy that fights this well and does all these things, you know, if they're not going to recognize him, then I don't have a chance. And so sometimes, even though it's not something that, you know, we're not covetous of and we don't really like need to happen like right now, for other people, our recognition is encouraging to others. And I know Eleanor's got a slightly different story on how his played out there.
Yeah,
a little bit. I
think it gives people a little hope.
Yeah.
So, with regard to your vigil, I really get that because, and I know people really get caught up on vigils and everything, but it's such an emotional time. It's more emotional than actually intellectual. The words that people tell you don't seem to really, I mean, you get so many of them. You get so many people come in and they tell you something that they felt was important that they wanted to talk to you about. And it just gets lost in the entire evening or, you know, the experience of it for most part. And I know other people have a better memory than me, so it might work out a little better, but I only really remember one piece of advice from my vigil. And, you know, but, and I'll tell it just because I thought it was pretty funny. But the thing that I remember the most though is how important it was and that people took time out of their event to come tell me that it meant something to them, that I was becoming a peer and there was something they wanted me to know. And I regret that I can't remember what it is they wanted me to know, but it means the world to me that they came and told me that. You know, it's a flaw on my part that I've got such a terrible memory. Also, I was drinking during my vigil, but, you know, the only thing I actually remember was Duke John the Bear Killer came in and he like held his belt up and he said, you really need to only know one thing, is that this right here and $5 will buy you a hamburger and a drink. And that's about it. So, you know, and I was like, what? And he's getting ready to leave. And then he turned around and he said, one more thing, a little bit serious though. You should get down on your hands and knees right now and for the rest of your life and thank the gods that you worship, that there is a place where people actually respect goobs like us and will give us this recognition and this honor, because we don't really deserve it, but we lucked into it and we found a place where people actually respect that we can hit people with a stick really well, and we're not completely terrible people. And I don't remember anything else from my stinking vigil, but I still think that that's all really neat.
I mean, he's definitely right on that one.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
of
boy.
giant nerds.
I did not know that I was going to get knighted. I wanted to be knighted way more than I thought I was going to get knighted. It definitely was a bit more of an experience, an ordeal, and I had to go through the frustration of, I think I should be knighted. Why isn't it happening? Which I know a lot of people have, go through that too. And, it's neat that you guys kind of already had this sort of, I know I will get knighted one day, but I really had my doubts. And,
oh, don't get me wrong. I definitely, I wanted to beat my brother to knighthood. Not chronologically, but birthday wise.
Right.
Because he also got knighted at 21, but he got knighted early 21. I got knighted late 21. But I think when I realized that wasn't going to happen, it was just like, okay, cool. Now I'll just actually relax a little bit. That was when it happened.
But hey, you were crowned younger than him, right?
I did. But so there's my most favorite award ever, and it is the Grant Level Fighting Award from the Outlands. It's called a Thane, and it is not given. Traditionally, GOA level fighting awards are given on the path to knighthood. The Thane is not necessarily that. It is given for being effective with multiple weapon styles, and a lot of the times being an effective killer on the melee field. My brother very much deserved that, but he got offered knighthood the day he thought he was getting that, and so he never got it, because very rarely does a knight ever get it. And so I got to hold that over him for 10, 15 years, or 12 years, something like that. I got to hold it over him that he didn't have one, and my stupid friend Barrick gave him one at Gulf Wars. I was like, no! I was so mad. I actually it was my brother was Crown of Atenvelt, I was Crown of Artemisia, and our best friend we grew up with, Barrick, was Crown of the Outlands. And so he held a court, and we were all up in it, and he looked right at me and was like, sorry, buddy. And then calls my brother into court, and I lost it. I was so mad. I was just so upset. I was like, how am I going to hold this over him? It wasn't the fact that my brother has deserved it for this long. It was the fact that I didn't get to hold it over him anymore.
Nothing like a brotherly competition. So, Gabe, before we jump into the things that you've been learning about your first time being in a crown, let's talk a little bit about the training. Because you were saying you didn't do a whole lot of training, and then you started working, and you actually started listening to Bela, and then you had to go back and asking questions about stuff he had tried to teach you before. But you get knighted. Somewhere down the line, you started wanting to take your single prowess a little bit more seriously, because you were. I mean, when I met you, not long after you had been knighted, your melee prowess was extraordinary, and you're mediocre at best as a singles fighter, and that's just not the case. And that's been 7 years, 8 years now. So let's talk about that journey from being a mediocre singles fighter to a crown winning, and now what I consider to be a major competitor anywhere you go show up to fight. How'd you get to there?
I think so. I went through a time probably around when I was 19, where I realized I had the skill level to be able to get knighted, but I was a terrible fighter. It was in my perception, I was not a good fighter. I would throw a select group of combos, and I was never fighting my opponent. I had fast hands, and I knew if I walked out and threw these repeatedly, eventually something would land. And I could beat an okay number of people, enough to get noticed, essentially. I made this realization and was like, okay, well, do I just completely break down everything I'm doing and relearn how to fight? And I made the decision. I was like, no, screw it. I'm going to get knighted. Then I'll learn to fight. And so I got knighted, and I was didn't really take it super seriously at that point. I did try to refocus a little, but I didn't put a lot of effort into it. And then it got to a point where I realized like so out of my little group of friends that are all young knights, I was severely the worst one. I thrive in a competitive environment, but it's a very specific competitive environment. If I don't know you, I don't care if you beat me. I really like couldn't care less. But if you're one of my friends, I hate losing to my friends. And so I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to actually learn how to fight, I guess. And it happened to be a time when I lived in Bozeman, Montana, which I was the only experienced fighter who actually like came out and fought. And I had like 3 or 4 college kids who had just started learning how to fight. And so I basically had to relearn everything Bela taught me as a child on how to train so that I could train these kids. And I think that conceptually broke down a lot of what I was doing a little better. It made me understand the motions of a fight a little more, and that it's try to refocus on beating my opponent, whoever they are, instead of just beating a Pell, which was essentially what I was doing before. I have fast hands and fast shots, and I was just throwing a lot. And so it was really competition with my friends. I didn't want to suck anymore. Learning how to teach younger fighters. I think honestly, one of the best ways to learn a technique is to try and teach it to someone else. And then eventually I switched over to a Madu a couple years ago, which honestly sometimes feels like I'm fighting on easy mode. Cause I've realized recently that my flat snaps, I've lost all form in my flat snaps because I am so used to the hole being giant with the Madu, because I can open up that bottom line a little easier than I could with a sword. I had to have crisp high flat snaps to be able to land. I watched a video of myself fighting. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And I'm like throwing like flat snaps at a downward angle. And I'm like, what? And I realized it was because I'm so used to being able to make the shield drop really low with the Madu. So that's when I say it's fighting. It's not an easy style to learn, but there are definitely some times that I feel like I'm fighting on easy mode. So I go pick up a shield to make sure I try and figure it out. I've actually been fighting with a shield a little bit more so I can relearn my flat snaps better.
Hey, Gabe, I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about your training methodology coming up as a squire. I had worked with Bela before he got knighted, and I've been talking to him about training methodology for a couple of decades now. And so, I know he understands the process. One of the things that we've been trying to do with the Coach's Corner is change the way that we teach our sport, right? Because when Alan and I started, it was, here's your armor and here, put your stuff on, and you go out there and you just figure it out, or you don't, and that's fine too. And there's this, there was this kind of acceptable loss ratio that we had in the early days. As somebody who is somewhat recently knighted, I mean, the last, decade or so.
Yeah.
Do you
7
think,
years?
Yeah. I mean, do you think, I mean, are we doing that? Are we actually teaching our sport better now? I mean, did you grow up in kind of a training centric environment, or do you think you kind of grew up in the go get 'em kids sort of environment?
I definitely grew up in a little bit of both, but the both came from at events. So it's like, show them what you got, go get it, go be a little monster. But all of like our practices growing up were very somewhat strict and rigid the way we would start. Like we started and this is all from Duke Spider from Trimaris. This was his methodology. And we would start with a set of drills every practice. And then we would go through and work on individual lessons. And it was like Bela would change up his defensive styles like all the time throughout a fight. Cause like Bela fights when he's in a tournament, he's got his Madu and he sits in A-frame and he's like, okay, do what you got to do. And he can sit there all friggin' day and just block everything. But he would change up what he's doing to make sure we were actually able to adapt to different environments. Instead of just being like, okay, this is how you beat this. He's like, I don't care. Like, make me move. You got to make me move. Like, let's do this. I'm not gonna lie, I just was rambling and forgot what the question was.
Training methodology. I mean, are we teaching our sport better?
I think we are, and I actually think so my dad was Knight Marshal of Kerta, which is Denver, for like a million freaking years. It was crazy. So me and my brother went to every fighter practice every Thursday for like 4 or 5 years. And at the time, Kerto was very much, this was early 2000s, by the way. Kerto was very much like you'd show up, you'd put on your armor, you'd swing at each other, and you'd go home. And that was very much the mentality. And I think over the years, and honestly, I think most of it is age. The majority of the people that are in armor nowadays are over 40, and that shit hurts. And I think they're like, well, hold up, let's talk for a minute. Let's actually try and focus on learning, because learning with just fighting is super slow. We're the only sport in the world that only spars for a martial combat. Like, that doesn't make any sense. We should definitely try and run more drills. And I think we are slowly getting there. And I think over the years, and honestly, with the internet being so accessible, I think the people who want to learn higher end technique have much more access to it, even at their local practices. I think we are trying a lot harder. There obviously are still cases where that isn't how it works, but I think the majority of the practices I tend to see, we're more focused on actual training technique instead of just swinging a stick.
Oh, that's definitely the goal of the SCA Coaches Corner, to grow the prowess as a sport in a way, and a martial art, and to begin to codify the teaching and the techniques and the philosophies behind that. And I definitely have seen it over the years where the SCA has grown in this regard. We still got a long ways to go, but this is, these are the steps, and we've taken really big steps over the last couple of decades. So I think it's positive, and it's good to hear, how, from a training standpoint, when you decided to buckle down, or when you needed to buckle down, you were able to find the resources to do so within your various, within your household, because, Bela is amazing. I oftentimes think that people take him for granted.
He's got a motto. Nobody likes a motto.
But he's an amazing teacher as well. It's like, and people, sometimes I think they struggle with Bela because they're like, well, I don't fight with a Madhu, so what can he teach me? And it's like, there's so much more to fighting than the actual style. The sword and the shield and the Madhu and the sword are, there's the angles and the thought process and the competitive drive, the things that we talk about on Coach's Corner all the time, that I believe Bela has been trying to teach people for decades as well. And oftentimes people got lost in the fact of, well, I wanted to learn how to fight sword and shield. It's like, you're not seeing through into the big picture here.
Yeah, and I think, Gabe, you brought up that point earlier that I think is perfect, that, he's not teaching you how to beat this fighter. He's teaching you how to beat the fight, right?
Yeah.
You address the fight that is presented to you right in front of you in that moment, not, the A-frame that Bronos does is, often imitated, rarely duplicated, right? There's, his A-frame is going to be different from a generic A-frame. And if you fight everybody with an A-frame like you fight Branos, that's going to be, it's just a different fight, right? Mm-hmm. And you need to fight the fight that is right in front of you at that time, and not get caught up in, like Elenon said, in style, because style is very subjective and is very personal, and it's based on a lot of just background experience. And as I've said repeatedly on here, there is no master style. There's just master practitioners. Mm-hmm. And you have to address the fight that is right in front of you. And I think that's something that you mentioned earlier that Bela teaches that I think is pretty huge.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to, like, we're all human beings. Our bodies can only move in certain directions. If you're reacting this way and you have this zone covered, they can only go certain, they're not magicians. Yes, we can throw tricky shots and things like that, but when it comes down to it, like, our joints only bend in in certain directions. And being able to understand through a fight, like, okay, I've placed myself in this position. What can they come at me with? How do I cover the majority of that? How do I flow through this? And being able to pinpoint that, instead of just being like, oh crap, they're swinging a sword. It's like, no, that sword can't hit me like this. Like, there's no physical way that sword can touch me from this position. and understanding that and being able to take advantage of it, and also being able to take advantage of the weaknesses from different body positions.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. The way you kind of had to come back to a number of things. And this is something that I mention a lot in, when I do my lecture for my fighting clinic, as I tell people that I'm just going to throw a bunch of information at you, and there's a limit to your capacity, right? There's a limit to how much you can absorb in a 1 or 2 hour session, right? And that's why my lecture is pretty much the same. It's been the same for 15 years, essentially, because either you haven't heard this stuff before or you missed something the first time, not because you weren't listening, but because you weren't ready for it. And it sounds like a lot of what you got is Bailiff throwing a bunch of information at you. And and again, at some point, you're up there in Bozeman and you're teaching these kids and you start talking about something, and all of a sudden there's oh, that's what he was talking about. Oh, yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. Right. And every time I call him and he's like, finally. I'm like, oh, shit, sorry, man.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to upset you there.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is being able to, you just put that information out there and let it wash over you. Reading the Book of Five Rings is a lot like this, where you just have to get through it and let it kind of wash over you a little bit without trying to dig down into every one of those books. And then, you just absorb it and you let it get in at some point, and then you let it kind of, boil, kind of fester a little bit.
Yeah. It's got to simmer there.
And then you get it when you're ready to get it.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that we tend to not realize is people's like space and ability to absorb that information at that specific time. And like a lot of times, it was actually kind of an interesting experience. Sagan, who is an amazing trainer, who's fucking
one of
awesome.
Our coaches.
Yep. So he was working with me and my friend Kelvin up here, and there was at one point he was talking to Kelvin. He goes, "Is your brain full? Okay, just go fight. That's fine. That's all right. Just go fight." And I was like, "Huh? I've never had like a trainer ask that." And it was just kind of interesting. Like it was like, no, just go have fun. This is a day you just go relax and have fun. Like that is another reason we have this hobby, is to blow off steam and have a good time. So knowing days like, I'm not training today, I'm just going to swing a stick at people, and that's going to be my fun.
It's good to know when your brain is full. It's one of the reasons why I loathe how in the SCA oftentimes women get treated and trained pretty much trained against their will. I'll see a woman fighter, show up to a field like at Gulf Wars or something, and they're just trying to do pickups, and people have lined up to start. People have lined up to start training this person, and I don't know what it is about what makes people suddenly just like trying to jump all over this person and train them. I don't know if they think they're courting or what, but training and courting have nothing to do with each other. And if people are trying, if you're hitting on a girl by trying to show them how to fight, stop it. Do something completely different. Just walk away from that. But I mean, I've watched, and they want to be good students. Maybe they want to be good. They want to be good fighters. So they're trying to absorb it all from all these people. And you can just see when, you see their brains get full. They literally get full, and then they start getting frustrated because another person shows up and tells them something completely different. And it's, I see it. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen to guy fighters, but
it's very,
I think probably every woman fighter has experienced this horribleness.
Yeah. And it's always really annoying. I'm like, just let them fight. Like, what are you doing? Just let them fight. Like, come on. They would have asked if they wanted your advice, sir, blah, 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 then no one knows.
Whatever.
Like,
yeah.
Come on. Like, let's chill out here for a minute. Because they paid to come on this vacation and want to swing a fucking stick. Like, that's what we're here to do.
And maybe they did want to learn a little bit that day, but it's overload.
A little bit something, but just getting to fight for like 30 seconds and then having someone talk at you for 20 minutes is like, why did I show up to this? What is going on? And especially at events, I'm like, no, like that they do that at practice. That's not for here. Like, now is a time to test ability. Like, that's what they're doing. They're going to fight as many people as they can. Getting talked at for, you are taking that person's time right now. Like, they only have so much time to give in a day, and you are taking it from them.
Well, I mean, some people, I've learned a lot at wars. So, I mean, I know that, I've learned a lot and I've taught a lot at wars, but you do have to kind of have your eyes open in both of the situations to try to figure out the person that I'm talking to right now. Do they want to be trained or do they want to fight and have fun? And, a good trainer tries to understand that and realize, well, I'll switch hats based on what the situation is here. But, sometimes, yeah, you do want to test yourself, where I'm just doing my 3 or 4 passes to see where I stand with all these different people that I go across. Mm-hmm. And there's something to that. But, I've gotten some of my best training, and I think I've also done some of my best training at these same situations and these larger wars after the pickups and stuff that just.
Oh yeah, I watched you do pickups for hours and hours as a kid. Honestly, this me and Nick would just hang out by the fort at Gulf Force. Be like, that dude's fucking cool. So like I think it is a lovely place to go learn because there are people who go to wars for pickups. But I think knowing your audience and honestly, all it takes is being like, hey, do you want to work on something or do you just want to
right, yeah.
That's all it takes. That's the easiest question in the world. And normally when I'm out of Kingdom, that's the first thing. I'm like, you working on anything today or you just want to swing a stick? All right, cool. I'm fine with either. Like, I'm good with either. Let's just go.
So let's talk about Bozeman, man. Bozeman practice. What does that look like? What are you guys doing there?
So I'm in Boise now.
Boise now. Okay. So.
Yep, I'm in Boise.
Stay put.
As long as he's in Kingdom, we're good.
So I was in Bozeman, which I absolutely love living in Bozeman. Sarah wanted to move, so we moved down here. And I was like, I don't want to go there. And I'm having a blast. I actually love it here. So
let's talk about Boise practice then.
Boise practice. So we, at this moment, so I've been at one in 2 months because I haven't been home in 2 months.
Sure.
But before that, we actually were making a slow progression towards. So when I first got here, there was definitely some like, they'd show up to practice and just do a bear pit for the entire practice. And then everyone would be like, cool, let's go get a beer later, guys. And that was a lot of what was, there was some training, but not as much. I try to every now and then. I'm like, you guys want to do drills today? Is everyone, let's do some of those. And most of the time, whenever I ask, they're like, sure, let's go. Most of the people in this barony are perfectly fine doing whatever. They just like being an armor. So it actually works out pretty well. And I think we have slowly gotten a little more into the training aspect of it, which has been nice. We tend to have, it's a smaller practice, like 5 or 6, probably most of the time, even split nights, non-belts. It's honestly, I like it here. We do have the added advantage of having a bunch of different weapon styles. So that is always fun. We need a lefty though. So if anyone is watching, wants to move and you're a lefty, come to Boise. We need a lefty to even things up.
So Gabe, do you think of yourself as a good trainer? And if so, why? And if not, why? What are you going to do to get better?
I think I am adequate in a lot of situations for training. I tend to I got the experience. So during the pandemic, I went and fought my friend Kelwin, who is a knight. But we fought every week. We got to go. And so we actually have it in video progression of her growth through the year. And it was just me and her working together. And I think that was a very good experience for me to learn how to work with an individual student over a long period of time. But we have, I think, I'm slowly learning how to be a better trainer. I think I'm good at explaining certain topics to fighters. It depends on, I think honestly, it's still got to be the right fit, essentially. Yeah. Like not every trainer can train every student. We can always give something if that's our goal, like there's always a little piece of something, but I have been trying to learn the process and I think I'm getting pretty decent at it, but it still depends on the student.
I would say so. I've been pretty fortunate to watch you in a couple of training interactions in the last year or so. When my squire Agnes was out here in November, you took her aside and slowed everything down and did some walkthrough stuff. And I really liked your approach. I mean, because it's somebody that because I think. Yeah, you had one crown, so you were crown prince there. So, I mean, somebody you probably could just blow them up, but you were able to give your time to be able to give her the exercise that she needed. I think most recently at St. Pius tourney when Hero had been fighting
Fedor.
Fedor, right? And then he came over and said, asked us what we think, and the three of us, me and you and Fedor, sitting around talking to Hero about stuff was fantastic. I really enjoyed both of you, listening to both of you share your experience, and you both, I think, approached it from a training centric mindset, and it's something that, like, it is a learned skill for sure. But I think the better you get and the more success you have in our sport, the more you tend to gravitate towards becoming a trainer as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, like, especially for me, I like making everyone else around me, like, let's all get up here. Like, that makes me better. And so I do have, like, I get to work with people consistently, which is super fun. Like with Agnes specifically that day, every time I would take a step forward, she would throw like I don't remember. I was fighting her with the Madu at the time, and she was throwing like at my stick. And so I switched to a shield, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to throw. I'm going to just advance. And I'm going to advance in a different defensive posture every time. Just throw at the opening, like throw one shot at the opening. And so I would like basically just take turns coming forward and having her adapt and throw it whatever the opening was. And it was one of those, like, there's no threat. I'm not even hitting you. Just see the opening and throw at it the moment I step into range. And so that was like just a specific thing there.
Yeah. And you being able to recognize where she is in her fighting and what she needs, like, in that moment, which may or may not be what I had her working on, but you get that interaction with her, and you see a thing that you can make an improvement on, and being able to just say, it's like, okay, let's give you what you need. Mm-hmm. Right. I think it's huge. And as trainers, being able to recognize that is huge.
And I'm fairly certain Agnes told me exactly what she wanted to work on. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's do a little drill. Like, this is how we do this. So it made that part easy. I'm like, I can make up a drill for anything. So let's just do it.
Let's not trivialize that. That's not an easy thing for a lot of people to do. So this being able to make up a drill to help with a specific situation is actually really interesting. I'd like to dig in a little bit about that. How do you do that? What do you have, like a collection of things in your head, and then you just sort of custom to what the need is?
I essentially, yeah. So I've had the pleasure of learning from a lot of people who love training. So I have a bunch of different, like, I've taken a bunch of like training classes, or not like specifically, like I was learning in those classes. So I get to steal those things.
The training, the trainer stuff.
Yep. But I think the biggest thing is giving them a safe environment to do whatever action they want to do. So either tone down the power and make them know that you're toning down the power, or not throw at all, depending on what the situation is. Because if it's a defensive thing, yes, you're going to throw. But it's knowing that they get to practice this thing safely. And then from there, it's breaking down exactly, is it a body position thing? Okay, we're going to put our weapons down and we're going to practice a mirror drill or do footwork or something like that. And if it's a reaction drill, it's going through, like, if they're having a repeated action that just they keep doing over and over, you then have to break that down in a slower, give them an area that they can see it and react. See it, react. And just repetition is super key. And then also figuring it out what stimulus is making them react poorly and getting rid of it. So like for a lot of times with the Madu, people if they're not used to fighting it, they get terrible habits because they just haven't seen it. And so they'll do something bad every time. So a lot of the times I'll be like, this is how you deal with a Madu. Throw at my goddamn arm every time I move. Like, and so we'll just go through it. I'm like, I'm going to just throw a shot. And every time this bottom hand moves, throw at my arm. Like, it'll stop me from throwing at you. Like, it makes me do something else. Or sometimes it's, okay, I'm going to fight single sword, or I'm going to fight with the shield and get rid of the sword. So you're not thinking of it, because that's not what matters in whatever this is. So giving them less stimulus to deal with, a safe place to learn it, and even slowing down speed or power, I think is kind of the key things I try to work with.
That's excellent. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes you're working on full speed stuff, which is in my opinion, a pretty hard way to learn.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's a fast sport.
Yeah, it's a fast sport, but I think yet again, we're one of the only sports that's like, we're going to spar for absolutely everything. Like that's how you're going to learn, which is just like, I think it beats in bad habits.
Yeah.
Instead of allowing you to see the thing you're supposed to react to, train the motion, react to it the right way, and then you can do it at full speed from there once you have the repetition to back it up.
I mean, at some point, sparring is necessary, but sparring is the last thing. That's the last part.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of the cookie at the end there. You know, after you've done the training and you've done the work, and you know you've done it slow enough to be able to work on these things. But yeah, I mean, sparring is a critical part of what we do, and it's something that has to be done. We have to do the sparring outside of a tournament environment because the tournament brings with it an emotional baggage that you don't want to complicate with that. But yeah, I mean, it has to be the mix of all the things. It has to be the training and the sparring and the deficiency training as well.
Yeah, the tourney is the ultimate test of the training, but we do have to have, I like the way you say it, we have to have safe spaces as well to test that training that doesn't have all the emotional baggage of tourney.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I had that, so I got to work with Al-Anon like 3 years ago. When was that? When you beat me up for 2 days?
It was not long before the pandemic. It was like the month before, I think.
Yeah, so I got the pleasure of working with Al-Anon. Me and my friend Fedor drove down to Reno, and he flew in, and so we got just like pretty much a private practice with him and my friend Franny, and him and Haley hosted us, and it was awesome. But I fought Al-Anon for 2 days and hit him once, and I couldn't figure out. I'm like, "You're so fast! You're so fast!" He's like, "No, I'm just moving. You're tense." Like it was, he taught me some cool things that I then got to teach actually recently to one of our local guys. It would go through and I would start and I would just juke or do something and then hit him. And he's like, "You're so fast." I'm like, "Don't get me wrong. I am fast, but that's not why I'm beating you. I'm making you stop moving. And then I'm just hitting you. Like it's all about tension in this fight." But I'm like, "Okay, so this is what we're going to do." And I would just do a juke and be like, "Where am I open? Like, what am I doing?" And so it was just trying to get him to break that stop motion. And it was because every time I would do it, he would stop. And it's like, no. Like, you have to move through this. Like, that's how this works. And so we spent a lot of time. We spent like 20 minutes working on it. And he was like, "That's the first time I've ever like learned that way." I was like, "What? Like, what are you telling me right now?" It's kind of an interesting.
It never fails to amaze me when people are introduced to the concept of training methodology, like an actual process of how to learn something. It just never ceases to amaze me how many people have still never heard of this.
Yeah.
You know, that like the idea of training this way is just so foreign. But then once you introduce people to this very, very basic concept of a training as a process, it's like self-evident, and it's a lot of, "Oh, well, yeah, we should have been doing this the whole time."
Mm-hmm. And he's also like a super good fighter already, but he's very reactionary. So like he just goes in and just starts throwing. And then so when you change it up and break it up, and he also did just spend like 3 years in Japan. He's an electrician who got sent over there. So it was one of those who's a little out of practice as well. So
Gabe, when we did that, kind of a private practice, we actually had other people show up too at some point. But
yeah, the second.
I'm just saying that what I had seen enough before, and then what I saw on our first day, our first 30 minutes of the first day of of what we were working on, was I saw that you had in you, because a lot of what that practice was both Franny wanted to work on his getting ready for West Crown, which he never then got a chance to fight in, and you were working on trying to get your skills up so that you could compete and try to win an Artemisian Crown. And I'm like, well, I've already seen what I need to see, which is you're going to win one. Now it's a matter about whether or not, when are you going to have the confidence to do it? Because the skills, you have the skill today. You have the prowess to win this thing exist within, I could see it exist within you this very minute. And I didn't need to work on your prowess. I needed to work on relaxing a little bit and getting your confidence and not letting your opponent beat you before you ever start swinging shots. So that's really what I wanted to. I wanted you to grow comfortable fighting me at a very high level, because it's like, well, if you can relax and just execute your training, against someone you think is going to smoke you, and then you realize, no, I'm in this fight. And at that point, I thought that's all you really needed to work on was really just learning how to, not get tense because of the competition. Instead, relax and trust what you've learned, and then let the fight start telling you how to win it.
Yeah, and I think that was super helpful at that time, because I very much it's weird. I don't have a lot of people that was like, oh, he's in your head. I think very logically, and I'm like, no, they're a better fighter than me. It's not they're in my head and I'm going to lose because I'm going to freeze. I'm like, no, they're just a better fighter. I have a chance, but they're better than me. And so being able to try to,
it's funny because the first time you got a chance to actually go and work on that, you smoked through everybody in Crownless and then ran against Sean. And it's like, okay,
oh my God,
so
that's such a funny video.
You've hit the one person that you don't necessarily have the confidence yet to beat.
No, actually, exact opposite. I was far too overconfident. So 3 weeks prior, I had a super good practice against Sean, and I was like, I got this shit. And I showed up to Crown and tried one thing, and it didn't work. And I was like, what is supposed to work? This was my whole idea. Why did, and I forgot everything I had learned growing up, which was don't go, why did I have a plan to begin with? But in my mind, I'm like, I got this shit. It was.
Yeah. Well, Sean at practice and Sean wanting to win Crowns, not the same thing.
Oh yeah, very much so. Right?
Well, at the same time, yeah, we had fought, and I knew going into that. Okay, I had known for 2 years that me and Gabe were going to end up fighting in the same crown, and that it was going to be clean, and it was going to be awesome. It was going to be the fight that you want to see. So I'd been expecting that fight for 2 years.
You were so disappointed.
And so when I got into the finals, having fought him 3 weeks before and having pretty much gotten the fight that I was expecting, I go into Crown expecting to get that out of him again. I'm like, I'm ready for that guy I had 3 weeks ago. And apparently, and I'll tell you, Gabe has told me this, Tierlock told me this as well. And I didn't see it because I was focused. I was ready to be tested. I was ready to execute at what I knew I needed to be able to execute at. Right. So I was just there. But apparently Gabe threw one leg shot with the Madu and I blocked it. I just pink, just blocked it super clean. And that's when apparently Gabe says the wheels came off for the whole thing.
Oh yeah. It was obviously headspace wise. I was not prepared for that moment, but I walked out and I was like, I'm going to throw this leg shot. I'm either going to hit the leg or he's going to step forward. I'm going to hit him in the head. It's going to be so easy. So fucking easy. And I walk out there and I'm like, ha! And he didn't step forward or didn't accept the leg shot. And I was like, well, fuck, I'm out. And then Sean's just like, eh? I'm like, yeah, I'm dead. I'm super dead. That was good. Sean was it was funny. He didn't want to say it, but you could tell he was just like, fuck, I thought I was going to get a good fight out of you.
I asked him in both fights. He's like, yeah, you got me. I'm like, what? Really? You sure about that? Because
I'm not here right now. I do not want this fight to be extended because I will embarrass myself further. Let's just get this over with. Yeah,
well, I'm gonna press you on that too, on a couple of things here. So first off, when Alan and I was talking about, the change when you decided that you wanted to do this for real, right? Mm-hmm. I had a conversation with you at Harvest War when Bela won what ended up being the COVID crown.
Yeah.
And I had asked you right that weekend, I was like, you've got residency in our kingdom. So I'm like, when are you going to do this? When do you want to do this? And that was, I was definitely trying to let you know that whenever you decided that you wanted to do it, I would happily, see you win our crown, and I'd be happy to help you get there as best I can. And what I remember you saying was essentially, oh no, man, that's for other people.
Well, so hold up.
There was no real
fighter. Yeah, I didn't really so that was me wanting to be not the worst of my friends. That wasn't necessarily going and proving it by winning a crown. I just want to be able to beat my friends when we're in the backyard. That's really all I care about. But the crown was very much, well, crap, Nick won. And so it was like, I got to do it. And I was like, talk to Sarah, and she was ready to do it. And I'm like, it's a good time in both our lives. Let's get it done. And so that was when we, like, I've always wanted to win a crown, but especially at that time at Harvest War, I'm like, I don't really care, man. Like it's not a big deal right now to me.
And see, brotherly spite is one thing. I mean, that is certainly understandable, but it takes more than your brother winning crown to find that shift, to decide that, you know, the level of fighter that you want to be. So was there something else that changed, or was there did that drive you in a different way? Because like I said, I have a hard time accepting that it was simply that, well, Gabe won crowns or Nick won crowns, and now I got to do it.
Well, so
because there was a change in how you approach fighting after that.
Oh, very much so. There was a lot more drive, right? But I've always in my mind, like, well, okay, so after I made the decision, don't want to be the worst of my friends, right? That was step number one. I didn't want to enter a crown that I was just like, I'm going to get good enough to win one. And then when it's time for us to do it, we'll go do it. So it wasn't necessarily like, I don't know, because I put a lot of effort training for that crown. Don't get me wrong.
You didn't want to take a lot of lumps to get there. You wanted to go win.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna just step in and go win. That was my plan. And it was just a matter of when. So I had the goal before to win a crown. It was just when I was gonna decide to try to make that dream come true. So it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna go fight in this crown. It was, I need probably like 3 months of getting my shit together to go be a contender in a crown. Like, so I just need to know 3 months ahead of time. And so having my brother win, I'm like, okay, guess it's my time to go. Let's do it. And so that was kind of the process there. Essentially, I was already trying to be a better fighter. I was already on the path to try and improve my prowess. I figured I had a decent shot at winning a crown at that point. And then when Nick won, I'm like, okay, cool. This is when I want to do it. This is the win.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was just kind of a Nick winning crown was just a trigger or a catalyst for something that you were kind of heading towards anyway. But that was the moment we were like, all right, now I guess we're doing this now.
Yep. Yeah. No, like I said, it's always been. So I said earlier, where I was like, I was always going to be a knight. I'm also in my mind was always going to be a duke. Like there was nothing like. I was like, it's just like logistics at this point. I'm starting when I'm 9. I have so much time to figure this out. Like I'm only 28 right now. So I was like, I have plenty of time to learn to be good at this. But yeah, Nick winning crown is like, okay, I guess it's time now. Like, I guess I'll go. Cause I mean, it was cool getting to reign with my brother, even though we only got like 2 events. So.
And Barrick too. I mean, you know, with you guys, I mean, that's a great picture of the 3 of you. And I, you know, I think Ellen, I can agree with this too. As people that were young crowns a long time ago, we've been waiting for you.
Like, oh yeah, definitely.
You know, before you won crown, I mean, there was part of me that was like, where's the guy that was me 20 years ago? Where's the guy that is super hungry and is going to be, you know, going to be that next generation, you know, that super young, super hungry. It's like, where are they? And so to have the 3 of you reigning at Gulf Wars at the same time was like, for me, and you know, somebody who understands the interkingdom anthropology and the history of our society, it gives me great hope to see all you guys reigning at the same time.
Yeah, it was definitely a really cool experience to be able to do that.
All right. So the other thing I'm going to press you on is so after your finals with me, you won the next crown. Mm-hmm. You went 3 fights in that one with Yuri, who ended up being your successor as well.
Yeah, he just smoked me in the first fight.
Yeah. So what changed? What was there? Because I mean, obviously, it's not like you learned a new physical skill in 3 months that, you know, that made you that much better. That's just not the way it works. I mean, it's totally the headspace. So what changed in your head as far as your approach going into that and after you'd lost that first fight?
I think so. I'm sure you guys have definitely heard other people talk about like, well, the first one I won was the one I didn't think I was going to win. I was only 3 weeks of being cleared from my kidney surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So I like felt like crap. Like not, I was like, I didn't get to train at all. Like I'm out of shape. This is terrible. Like this is dumb. And I had like in that 3 weeks, I got to fight like once or twice maybe. So I hadn't fought at that point for like 2.5 months. And so I was like, this is terrible. Like I normally get a fight once a week at least, like up until this. It's just a base level. And I hadn't been able to do any sort of like not at practice training, like any sort of physical training or speed training. And so I didn't feel good about it. I went out and I had my good friend Sir Fedor. I was like, warm me up, man. Let's do this. And we went out and I'm like, God, I am slow. My hands suck. My feet suck. My body's not moving right. Screw this. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go out and just fight. Like that's what I was there to do. And I went out, did okay in the pools. We run a pool system in Artemisia. So we have you basically do a round robin for a section of it and then go up to the semifinals. Did all right in the pools, not super spectacular by any means. And then
I think you lost one fight.
I lost to Magnus who got knighted actually. And so made it into the semis, fought my friend Fedor, was able to beat Fedor, went into the finals, and I moved and Yuri just slot shotted me like right down the edge of my Madu. And I was so happy because that had been something we had specifically been like working on, because he used to do this weird duck thing and he would blind himself, and he didn't do that, which was the normal reaction he has. So I was a little excited. I was like, I don't even care if I lose today. And it was one of those, like, I was very excited for my friend as well. I mean, honestly, Sean, you've won 1,000,000 crowns. I wasn't that excited for you to beat me. Like, it was one of those, like, you're still one of my dear friends, but I'm like, John's won 1,000,000 of these. And Yuri really wanted to win again because he loved being crowned. And his wife really loves being queen. And they're awesome heirs, and I love them.
Yes, so they were awesome heirs. Because they followed us. Yeah. They followed us in our last raid.
And so it was one of those, like, I honestly at that point didn't care. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't like losing in any manner, but I was acceptable to that. Like, it was one of those, like, cool, like this is a good day no matter what. And I think having just more of an open, loose mindset helped a lot. Like I said, lack of confidence in the beginning of the day, and then by the time I got to the finals, I was like, whatever. I'm already having a good time. Like, this is where I want to be. I'm here fighting one of my good friends. Like, if he wins, I'm going to be so happy for him. Like, if I win, of course, I'm going to be happy. But it was a lot more relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, not a man so dangerous as a man who's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a certain freedom that is necessary, I think, to be able to compete. Well, honestly, to be able to execute the truest version of who you are as a fighter. Because I think what happens is people get a little too wrapped up in, and I think maybe that's what happened, when you were in the finals with me is,
very much so.
I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to do this thing. This thing is going to work, and like you're kind of banking on it, and then when that doesn't work, like everything falls apart. But being able to just fight free and just being able to execute who you are as a fighter, regardless of the outcome, is a huge part of competing at the highest levels. I mean, because it's you fight the fight you have, not the fight you wish you had. And if you try to, because I've had lists where when I was in the finals with Floki in the 20th crown, I was like, this is a guy who knows me really well, and so I'm going to have to do something different to surprise him. And so, I tried to be something other than what I am, and he killed me in 3 seconds, literally 3 seconds. Because I tried to jump in and he just threw a wrap and just hit me in the back of the ear because he was just fighting. And then, I pulled my shit together and went 2 more fights with him and put up a crown quality loss. But yeah, trying to be something other than who I am got me killed in literally 3 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, I think when you go into a fight with a plan, like that's one thing I don't think I'm I think I'm a good fighter. I have a while to go before I'm amazing. But I think one of the things I appreciate about my fighting and what I work to try to do is be adaptable to all of my fights. And when I fought you, I was not adaptable. I went in with a plan, which was dumb. I never go in anything with a plan. Like so it was very disappointing for me.
And I had no plan.
Yeah. You were going to go out and fight and have fun.
Yeah, I'm going to fight. I'm going to have fun. Like I said, I knew you were one of the cleanest fighters in the world. Honestly, I don't know if a lot of people know that about you. Not wearing a lot of armor probably has something to do with that.
I got to wear armor now. I got to wear real armor now.
I don't think it does, Sean. I don't think it does. He and his brother both, regardless of how much armor they wear, they both would never want to win a fight that they didn't win. So they call clean, and they throw relatively hard, but they call light and clean, and they are both so honorable when it comes to fighting. It's just a joy to watch them, because if I could create new young fighters who are going to take over the SCA in a lab, it'd look an awful lot like Gabe and Nick.
Thank you.
And I can tell you, I mean, I went into those finals, while I'm trying to fight the best I can, I was prepared for the possibility that I was going to lose that fight. And again, I'd been saying for 2 years, because I talked to you at Estrella, but right before everything shut down, I'm like, hey, look, we're planning on entering Crown as well. And, I just want you to know that I'm not entering Crown to stop Gabe.
Yep. Yeah. Right. And we had that conversation multiple times, and I definitely truly understand that you were not there to keep me out. Like it was, I think it was very evident in your excitement for the fight before it began that you were going to be happy either way. Like obviously no one liked to lose, but it was very evident that you were like, hey, I'm here to go. Like this is going to be a good day.
The difference is between the two of you that, and this is a growth step for you, Gabe, that you'll continue to have as you grow as a fighter, in your pro, is that, you had thoughts about the fight and then went and did the fight. And Sean had thoughts about the fight and then went to do the fight. But when things didn't work out the way you wanted to in the fight, you started having different thoughts or no thoughts at all. And Sean was never going to be in that mode. Sean just was going to let the fight happen. And then he was going to, let all of his experience come out of it. Whereas you had a plan and the plan didn't work, and you kind of started having to figure out what to do. And that's, in the middle of the fight, it sounded like you just also kind of mentally gave up. So,
I 100% did. I think I had been denying the fact that because honestly, up into the tournament and during the most of the tournament, I wasn't super worried about a lot of things. And I think it honestly finally caught up to me. In that, I was like, okay, getting ready. And then the one thing didn't work. And then my false wall just fell down of just shit, crap. There's a bunch of people here. My mom and dad drove up from Colorado to watch me lose. This is going to be great.
And so did your brother.
We're not a very nice family. And my brother walked up. He's like, way to disappoint the family, bud. Thanks. It's like, you're not wrong.
So I have a million more questions, and we're just going to run out of time. But I would like to ask you, what are your fighting goals? And they can be fighting / training, or they can just be fighting. But what are your fighting goals, over the next, 5 years, next decade? What do you want to see yourself move into?
Honestly, my eventual goal is to not let anyone ever hit me. That's, to be completely honest, I want to be the best at one point. That's, even if I don't achieve that goal, I'm fine with that, but that's my goal. I want to be the best. I want to be able to walk into a fight and never worry about being hit. That's where I would like to be.
I'm familiar with that goal. I will say though, you'll have to have a plan, because it doesn't just happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that there is training involved in that. But it was, that's my goal. And yet again, I have the advantage of having a lot of time left in my fighting to be like, that's my goal. Okay, if it takes me 15 more years, whatever, I'll still get there. So I have an excuse built in essentially. So it just makes it kind of easy. I'm like, I'll work on that next year. That's okay. But actually, I being crowned is not very helpful for learning how to fight good. I don't get to fight at
No, it's
all.
not.
It's kind of terrible. But so I'm honestly just like, I'm gonna go have fun with Crown and make sure everyone in my kingdom has a good time, and then I can refocus on me afterwards.
Well, without saying the specific training thing, that you need to do, one thing you are doing right, which is you're traveling. And as cliche as it is, to be the best, you got to fight the best, and to be the best, you got to beat the best. And you're traveling. You've gone up to Ontier a couple times. You came out to Aidenvelt stuff. You're willing to go fight, and you're fighting in tournaments now that are in kingdom level of multi-kingdom events. All those things are the path to greatness. You absolutely have to go and test yourself. Both test yourself and then also walk away from all of those fights with a laundry list of what you want to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am very critical of my own fighting, so I definitely always come away with stuff I have to go improve. So it always makes it gives me a nice little homework list to work on. Yeah. I normally never throw pell shots, but I've recently been throwing flat snaps a lot because I've been disappointed in myself.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure I got plenty of questions for you too. I mean, Gabe, we have talked into the late hours of the night there. So
yes, we have. Normally when you're like, Gabe, go home, please, get out of here.
Love it. But yeah, I think we're gonna have to wrap up. So Gabe, you got any final thoughts you want to share with us? Share with the audience tonight?
I think the biggest thing about fighting is remembering why we do it, and that's joy. Like, that's honestly, if you get too focused on whatever your goal happens to be, like whether that's winning a crown or winning a local baronial championship, you will never gain any knowledge or gain any part of that goal without remembering why we're here, and that's to have fun. If the process is not fun, change your process. Like, that's the biggest advice I can ever give anyone.
Absolutely. Alan, you got any other final thoughts for Gabe there?
This is the longest I've talked to him without having a cheap beer. So,
it is. Yeah.
Fresh out of Malort.
or 20. What's the Wobbly H?
It is my crappy bar that me and my friend Sir Zachariah started. It is a dumb bar cart that we just push around events, but it just gives us an excuse to be rabble rousers. It's a group of very young knights who roll around. Honestly, a lot of other people that are now we're just a big group of friends that like showing people how to have a good time, and we roll around giving out crappy drinks. So that's pretty much the whole thing.
I've heard of it. I would like to look into it. Do you have any literature? Perhaps a magazine or something?
No, do not Google Wobbly H.
Nope.
Do not Google that. It is not the best idea, especially on a work computer.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest this evening, and it has been a great learning experience and a lot of fun to hang out with the both of you tonight. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. This has been a good time. Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you. So next week on the Coach's Corner, we have, if the schedule is correct, we've got part 2 of Aidenvelt's Heroes and Traditions. So yeah, looking forward to that. Elena, do we have our guest lined up for that? We're gonna have Dennis back for that.
Dennis of the Titan.
Yeah, he was part 1. You can go back to our YouTube library and see the part 1 episode. I hope that he'll be back for part 2, and I've got a special guest, and Sir Valora is definitely joining us. Nice. And it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to next week.
You guys should get Deaton too, and have Dennis and Deaton just tell crazy stories. I'd watch that for 10 hours.
I mean, that could be a Coach's Corner episode all by itself.
Yeah,
that's its own show for sure.
Room and let them talk shit to each other. That's all I want in my life.
So yeah, we got that. So please join us for that next week. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And have a good night.
Night, everybody.